Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contract, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Luxury Podcast, your source for all things luxury and lifestyle. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Heidi Dulebohn on the line, and she's an international cultural consultant and etiquette expert over at Heidi Dulebohn. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. I'm just thrilled to be here. Very kind of you to include me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. I was watching your Instagram channel, and I learned so much stuff on your Instagram. I was like, I didn't even know that a tomato had its own serving utensil. I was like, this is amazing. So I'm happy to bring your content and what you're doing to the masses today. And just to get us kicked off, Heidi, I want you to start out with today's topic. It's going to be etiquette and cultural competence for everyday life, and we're going to talk about some things that my audience and myself can gain from that. But before, just to give a little bit more of the background, tell us a little bit more about your business, please.
Well, yes, thank you so much, Adam. Yes, what I do is I really help people reach their goals, to help people to be their best self. And I believe that we are all hopefully quite intelligent, and we have the technical skills for our jobs and technical skills. We're smart enough to get through life well. We're great at navigating that. But many of us are lacking in some of our soft skills, if you will. And I think that etiquette is the foundational part of some of these soft skills that I call social codes. And cultural competence, etiquette and cultural competence are things that we need to use in your everyday life. Whether you are working from home and you've never left your home office, you are still connected to the world through your computer, your phone. Technology has allowed this, and so many of us are working on global teams, or we are just working with people from other cultures. We need to be aware and we need to be appreciative, and etiquette helps us with that. It keeps us grounded in the core values of etiquette, which really are about respecting others, respect their values, respect where they're coming from, no matter where that is.
So I love your take on this, and I think that's a great transition. So I think when it comes to etiquette and cultural competence and thinking about how that works into everyday life, I feel like for some people, let me speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but for some people like myself, they think that etiquette may be sometimes out of reach. Like you think about etiquette, and I think of movies. I think of like old movies, and it's like what fork do I use, or what is this, or how do I? But there's so much more to it than just what Hollywood, I would argue, has fed us when it comes to this. I mean, could you go a little bit more into what your value system within etiquette and cultural competence looks like? Because I think it matches something that's more attuned to what benefits like all of society. Because as you mentioned, a lot of it deals with respect.
Oh, absolutely. There's a great quote that I like from the great Emily Post, and she said, manners are a sensitive awareness of the feelings of others. If you have that awareness, you have good manners, no matter what fork you use. And I think that really sums it up, that manners are about being respectful of others, about having empathy, understanding that people are coming from all different places, and you need to be polite and be kind and be thoughtful, and you always, of course, have to be authentic to your own values. And etiquette is much more than which fork to use, but I will tell you, I do have a lot of dining etiquette clients, because some people become quite high up in corporations. A lot of senior leaders I work with that just never had that opportunity growing up. They just didn't, it just wasn't part of their world growing up. And then it gets to the point where do I go to find this? Because I'm at these really fancy dinners and there are all these utensils on the table, and I've watched Downton Abbey and I don't know what to do. You know, so it's kind of fun. So it is a much, much bigger world than what forks or what utensil to use. But just for a little tongue-in-cheek, yes, thank you for noticing on Instagram. We have a lot of fun with that. I have a collection of antique serving utensils, and we sort of play guess what this function is. And it's kind of fun. Imagine living in a day where you had a specific fork for your sardines. You know, it's hilarious, really. So luckily, we've moved on, and it's about just being aware of everyone around you and how can you help them? How can you not offend them? How can you help them be their best selves?
And I do like that you bring up the because when I say things like use a fork or not use a fork, it is important to know that. And I don't especially when you're talking. So I don't want to glance over it. I just feel like sometimes people only think about that, but I do think that whole part of it is important, because it just you have to, if you're an executive, you're at a high level, you have to you rise to the occasion when you're at work or when you're doing other things or when you're building your brand. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten to that level. Like, you didn't accidentally get in that CEO seat. So to lose perception or something else over something as, and I don't want to use the word silly, but I don't have another word for it, as silly as not taking the time to study up the etiquette, which you could have learned it's a skill. Like, you can learn it if you didn't grow up with it, right? Like language is a skill. It's the same thing. Like, to leave that loose end out there is just, to me, it's like, why would you did all these other things, like this is like, tie up that loose end, get that done.
Oh, absolutely. It's so true. I have worked with so many people that are managers or middle managers that have been passed over, and they are as smart or smarter than their peers. They have the technical ability equal or more than their peers, but they're lacking in what we call social skills, or the new term is non-cognitive skills. And these are skills, as you point out, Adam, you can learn these. It's never too late. But I'll tell you, if you do not have them, it is apparent, because a grasp of etiquette from the whole spectrum, from dining to just remembering to say please and thank you. You'd be amazed how far a thank you note can get you. Some of these seemingly small things that can set you apart. And my whole take on etiquette is it gives you the confidence. Once you know how to do things, that then you have the confidence to go out and do what you're really there to do. Show off your technical abilities. You're the best coder in Silicon Valley. Show them that. You now have the confidence that if you're at a dinner or you're at a business lunch, one day we all will be again, you will not be intimidated by the table setting. It will be second nature what to do, which is your bread plate, which is my water, and they get it all mixed up. And then I worked with a client who became so flustered. He was a brilliant coder, and he knocked over water, and it was the business lunch was a disaster. Laptops became wet, and because he was so nervous at this very complicated table setting. So, this gives you confidence to go on and do what you came there to do, what you're really good at, and those are your technical abilities.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And to me, again, I guess it's the low-hanging fruit. Like, that coder did, and not to pick on him at all, but the amount of work and expertise and like things that went into getting to that table, It's not an easy thing, not an easy task, right? And to get to that table and to not maybe, you know what I mean, like that. But obviously he had the site afterwards to work with you and to do these other things. So he did what he had to do. But for some of the people listening, because I'm a big advocate of what we're talking about today. For some of the people listening that know that they're maybe lacking in that end, for whatever reason, doesn't matter. But for whatever reason, it becomes an opportunity for you to tie up that loose end, because when that opportunity does present itself, you don't want to be scrambling. Like, this is something, again, it's a skill. It's like saying, oh, tomorrow if I needed to know XYZ language and tomorrow I get an opportunity to go out to go, do business in that country and I don't know a single word of it, you're not going to learn that in a day, probably. Like, if you kind of knew you were prospecting XYZ country ahead of time and you had some leeway like you do right now, if you're listening to this and you know you're lacking in that area, then it's like, well, start now, because you don't know when that call is going to come or that opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And as the world becomes flatter, meaning that we are communicating instantaneously around the world. I was communicating yesterday with people in Muscat, Oman, and in Brussels, Belgium, and I am sitting in my home office in Tennessee. So we are all instantaneously connected, and yet we are all very different, and that's the beauty. We need to celebrate these differences, but yes, make an effort, research the culture where people are coming from, and you will learn a lot, and you will understand when some cultures say yes, they mean no, and you will understand that sometimes silence in some cultures is flattery. And in other cultures like ours, we might say, "Oh my gosh, I'm a huge flop. This is going nowhere. They're not saying a thing." And yet, in the other person's culture, they could be saying, "This is the most marvelous deal we've ever made." So you've got to be culturally aware. And so many of us are working with global teams. We are working with people from just all over. My next door neighbor here in Tennessee is from Amsterdam. She's lovely. And so I understand she's a little direct, and that's great. It's the culture, and we never want to stereotype. We just really want to appreciate the other cultures. And I say, appreciate them, learn about them, and be aware. Be self-aware of your own culture and be aware that these other cultures are out there. There's nearly, 7.8 billion of us on the planet, and we're all very different. Yet what's that one thing we have in common that we can all do and we can all communicate? And if you brush up on your cultural competence and you have etiquette skills that give you the confidence to communicate cross-culturally, you will advance. You will become successful.
That's awesome. So Heidi, first off, I can talk to you about this all day long, and we just barely scratched the surface on what this topic means and where it can go. So that being said, if somebody's listening to this and they want to follow up and they do want to learn more about what you're doing and follow your work and talk about it, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Oh, thank you for asking and the opportunity. Yes, please, everyone. Love to hear from you. And the best place is to go to my website, HeidiDulebohn.com. And from there, we are on all the social platforms. There's easy links to all of them. Instagram, link with me in LinkedIn. We're on Twitter, everything we publish on Medium. We're everywhere. I'd love to hear from you. And yes, if you'd like to get some antique old dining utensils, follow us on Instagram. It's just for a little bit of a laugh and a little break in the pandemic, if you will. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Heidi, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Great having you here. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Luxury, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Heidi, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Adam. All the very best.